Hey guys, so two things really. First of all, I'm a little bit sad that I've had to mute the Biffy Clyro anthem thing on Kerrang. I was really enjoying it and I thought, oh wait, I've got some time, let's film this video. And second of all, the thing that probably should have been the first point is I do apologise for the lack of videos. I think it's been like well over a week since I've filmed, which isn't really a long time in the grand schemes of things, but it is for me because I usually upload like every couple of days, every 3 days or so. So I usually have like 2 or 3 videos in a week, which may be a bit too much for some people. Anyway, the reason is I have been pretty much doing up my whole room. I think this is the first time you've seen at least a snippet of my room on this channel. So yeah, I've got blue walls, I've got new wardrobes that's just come through. So yeah, apologies for like the late uploading and the kind of no uploading as well. Anyway, I do have a video for you today, obviously. This is my June wrap up, so I'm going to be talking about my books and my films, stuff like that. So I ended up reading about 10 books. I'm a little bit out of the swing of things, so sorry if I come across a little bit weird. Anyway, I think I read about 10 books and I've watched 2 things that I want to review that are worth talking about. So this is going to be a long video, just expect that. Maybe get a snack, maybe get a drink, because this is going to be a long one, or you can watch it in parts, I don't know, however you want to watch it. But yeah, I'm kind of still buzzing because I'm excited about my room getting done and everything. It's almost finished now. I just need to build my bookshelves, which are over here and will be on this wall that I'm sitting at the moment. So yeah, behind me will be some nice bookshelves and I might sit there and do more videos in the future. But anyway, do you want to see my wardrobe? No, actually don't, because it's all mirrored and you'll see the mess that is my room currently. I'm literally sitting in a load of mess at the moment, putting things away and stuff. Anyway, I'm rambling, I'm just so excited. But yeah, I've missed you guys. Let's get into this video. So, the first book I decided to pick up and read, I can't remember if this was a continuation from the month before or if I just picked it up afresh in June, but anyway, the one that I first finished was A Confusion of Princes by Garth Nix. This is another kind of sci-fi book. You may recognise him because I do like reviews and stuff on his books. I don't know if I'll review this singularly, just because I can review it here, but basically all of his Old Kingdom books and stuff like that I've reviewed, and I think I'll keep it to that. I don't know, I just seem to have a running theme of reviewing every Garth Nix book separately, but what I'll do, in case I do want to review this separately if I haven't already, I'll just mention some brief points. So basically this is a sci-fi novel. Some of you may have known already that I don't really care for Garth Nix's sci-fi, but I'd had this a while before I read something else sci-fi based by him and just discovered I didn't really enjoy it. But this is basically the story that sort of, I think, helped create the short story in one of his like short story collection books, which is a sci-fi one too. So it was cool to finally kind of read where that basis was from. It's basically about a prince called Prince Kenry, I believe, and it's about his 3 lives, because when princes die, they have the opportunity of being reborn again, and can continue their life, sort of thing. So this is about the 3 lives of Prince Kenry, how he died and how he lived, sort of thing, in this strange sci-fi kind of universe thing that's really, really weird. So I ended up giving this a 3 stars. Initially I didn't really like it too much, but overall I did enjoy it for what it was, and for what it gave me, I suppose. But there was just this slight feeling of, I don't know, dislike over the whole thing that I just couldn't shake, so I couldn't have a higher rating than a 3, unfortunately. And honestly, until I got about 100 pages in, this was just going to be a 1 star for me, but things started to kick off and I started to get interested in the storyline and some of the characters. But in saying that, I felt like I never truly had a real bond with Prince Kenry. I didn't really like him as a character. Although he does grow throughout the book, I just had this irritance, you know, this annoying feeling that he gave me, and I couldn't shake it, I suppose. So yeah, because I couldn't really connect to any of the characters and I didn't genuinely care about the storyline, I couldn't really get so involved in the book that I would have liked to. I would say it's quite a unique story and, you know, enjoyable to an extent. I don't think it's something I would read again. I mean, I rarely reread books anyway, but this is definitely not something I'd read again. I think it's just not really to my tastes. I much prefer Garth Nix's fantasy kind of books. This just was, you know, okay for me. It was so-so, but I do know people that would definitely enjoy this. So, you know, just because I didn't enjoy it to the full extent doesn't mean you won't, you know. So there's that. So after that I decided to read my first ever book that I've read by James Herbert, and that is The Rats, in this beautiful edition. I think it's the 40th anniversary edition, and it's got like this nice like gold detailing, and it's really beautiful, and it's got a foreword by Neil Gaiman, who's one of my favourite authors ever. So yeah, it was just an all-round beautiful book. Not beautiful in terms of story, but it was very interesting. So it is set in London, I do believe, and we're basically following all these different people that live around the area, and their experience with these new kind of wave of rats that have turned to human flesh for food, and just kind of the downfall of that and how they deal with it, and the deaths, and oh, everything's so gory the way it's described. But yeah, I really did enjoy this. I ended up giving it a 4 stars, and I pretty much read it in one sitting. I had breaks in between, but like I smashed it out in the evening. Like, it was really good. I just pretty much couldn't put it down, and I know it's only a small book, but there was times where I was reading over bits because I was like, oh my god, is this actually happening? Oh, what's happening? It's going weird, you know. So yeah, it was really enjoyable, quite fast paced as well. It's kind of strange because for the most part I feel like this had the feeling of interconnected short stories. Like, the way I was reading it, for the majority it was like snippets of each individual victim's experience with these rats, and then it would always end up kind of involving this particular character, who I would say was the main character. But other than that, like, they all felt like little short stories, and then it kind of all built up into one big thing, which I really enjoyed. I thought that was an interesting kind of way to write it. It also made it feel kind of quicker to read as well, because it felt like it was cut up in those sort of pieces, if you know what I mean. I will say the main character wasn't very likeable, but I really enjoyed the plot surrounding him, and some of his actions were very interesting to follow. So I did appreciate him as a main character, but I didn't like him. Like, he's not somebody I would willingly talk to. I wouldn't really class this as pure horror. I think I was going into this thinking this is going to scare me, you know, to death. It's going to really frighten me. But it wasn't like that. I mean, the depictions and the descriptions of these rats devouring people was pretty brutal and grim, but it's nothing that I, you know, lost sleep over. It wasn't scary, it was just disgusting and gross sort of thing, with, you know, that hint of, oh, when's it gonna happen sort of thing. So yeah, I wouldn't describe it to be like a true pure horror, which is strange because James Herbert, I'm pretty sure he's he's won quite a few literature awards for horror, and a lot of people think he kind of set the bar for horror at the time. So maybe it was just, you know, at that time it was a scarier thing to read, but now with all these horrifying things, you know, being made into film and that, it doesn't live up to that kind of spooky level, you know. I felt that the exploration of characters was absolutely excellent. I loved that we managed to delve into their backstories before the inevitable happened. I mean, I was hoping it would give us some sort of emotional connection to get the backstory of these characters, but I didn't really feel that. But in saying that, I did still feel shocked when, you know, they were murdered or something bad happened, you know what I mean? But yeah, I just didn't feel like completely gripped to the characters, but I thought the exploration of them was very well done. So just generally the reason I didn't give it a 5 stars is because I just had this slight disconnection from the characters and the story. I felt like an outsider watching rather than being involved and, you know, really into the story. But I did really enjoy it. Something I would probably read again. Would recommend it totally. And I think I'll leave it there for this book. Next up, I read a NetGalley book. I've got a few NetGalley books in this video, so, you know, I'm 100% honest, yada yada yada. This is my honest opinion. But this one was called Alice in Brexitland by Lucien Young. Just from the name straight away, you know it's going to be like a satire on the recent events in terms of Brexit and, you know, leaving the EU. Kind of like spun the Alice in Wonderland story and made it relatable to the current events in Britain, and I thought it was really, really funny. It was really enjoyable. I ended up giving it a 5 stars. It's only a short book, but it was just so charming and funny. I mean, there were a few things like that I'm not clued in about politics. I don't know too much about it, but there were some things that just, like, it hit me and I was like, oh my god, is that supposed to be that guy? Is that supposed to be that? I totally understand what they're talking about. I did have to look up some things that I wasn't too sure, like some character names that I was like, who's that in the politics world? And then I I'd do a Google search and find it. But overall, it was so funny. If you have an interest in British politics or anything like that and you want a bit of a giggle, this would totally be right up your street, I think. Although it was extremely humorous, I think there were quite a few valid points that were in there, so it was done in quite a fun way. So yeah, a really fun, interesting, strange little book. Okay, and then I read New Boy, which was also a NetGalley ebook that I got, by Tracy, I can't say it, Chevalier. I'm so sorry, I probably butchered that. So this, from what I can tell, is basically a part of a Shakespeare retelling story, and this follows the kind of idea of Othello, which I've never read that play before. I don't know what it was really about, but knowing it was a tragedy, I was expecting the worst, because this book about the New Boy is based on a children's playground in the suburbs of Washington in the 70s, and the New Boy is a black kid that comes over from Africa, and everybody else is like white, so they're all, it's kind of like how they react to him, how he reacts to them, how the teachers at the time react to them, and just to kind of see that dynamic between the children and the way they've been brought up to treat different people was quite interesting, especially at the time that it was set in. It's strange though, because within the book they mentioned that they were getting ready to practice or do another Shakespeare play, which was a complete different one. It was a Midsummer's Dream, and that one was kind of thrown in there, I think, to make reference to something else that was said later. Makes sense. So I wish they would have spoken a bit more about that, because it just felt a little bit offhand, like, oh, you just said that to make a connection to something else when it's really nothing of that much importance, you know. I would have liked it more to have more significance to Othello, or however you pronounce it, in a bigger sense. Like if they was to be reenacting that would have made more sense. It sounds a bit confusing now, but if you read it, perhaps you'll understand what I mean. I'm not too sure, maybe I'm just not expressing myself properly. The characters I thought were all very interesting, and the way they reacted and kind of conversed with each other was very interesting to see, especially in the minds of like, what, 11 to 12-year-olds going on to you know, the stages of pre-teenhood, you know. So it was very interesting to see those dynamics. I would definitely recommend this book. I thought it had quite a few morals, a few lessons to be learnt, and I think it was just an interesting read because of all the circumstances involved and the situations that evolved, you know. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. After that, I read another NetGalley book. I had quite a few that I had requested and I didn't realise that I had, so I was just like downloading them all and thinking, oh, might as well read them now, you know. I'm getting pins and needles, so I'm just trying to manoeuvre. Oh. Right, anyway, as I was saying. So the next one I read was Lies We Tell Our Kids by Steve Hoover and Brett Wagner. So I ended up giving this a 1 star, unfortunately. It really wasn't as funny as I was hoping it to be. We basically have these random lies that apparently parents, adults, whatever, tell children to make them do stuff, sort of thing. But some of these were just, well, the majority of these were unrelatable. I'd never heard of many of these. I thought some of them were just silly. They didn't really have any like lessons to them, that, you know, no point to them. It was just silly, I thought. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend. I'll probably end up deleting it off of my ebook to make up some space. The illustrations are quite funky though, like they're pretty cool. But yeah, I just thought they were a little bit unrelatable pretty much, so unfortunately I didn't enjoy that one too much. So I'm halfway through the books now, and I've kind of got to the point where I just can't be bothered to speak anymore. I've been talking for so long. It's kind of strange to me now because I haven't been filming any videos whilst I've been having this like unofficial break. It's just strange. Can you just like read my mind now, because I can't bother to speak anymore. But if I leave it and then film the rest later, the lighting would have changed even though I've got lights on, and I just may not return. So I'll try and whack these ones out quickly. I don't think I have much of a lengthy review for the majority of these books that are left, and then of course I've just got those 2 things I want to talk about in the TV movie world. But anyway, so the book I picked up after the last was Downward Dog, a very serious haiku from a very serious dog, and this is by Samm Hodges, Venus Hodges and Idil Gosdi. Sorry about that. Again, it was a NetGalley book, so once again thanks to the publishers. Opinions are 100% my own. So this is actually an accompaniment book to the TV show also called Downward Dog. A couple of months ago I got the early access link to watch it, but I've put it off because I was doing something else and I forgot about it. And just before I wanted to read this, I wanted to check it out. I got onto the link, and because I'm not a US citizen, it wouldn't let me watch it, so that was a little bit annoying. And honestly, I think if I had watched the show, because it did look quite interesting, I saw the trailer for it, I think I would have enjoyed this a lot more, because I could have, you know, related the book to the show, and I think it would have been cute in that. In saying that, I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars. It was quite funny, but again, I didn't have that, you know, connection with the show and the book, so it was just okay for me. Honestly though, the cute book just really makes me want to try and find the show and check it out, because it does sound like it could be quite good, like a light-hearted family sort of thing, and I've not watched one of those in a while. So yeah, I'd say investigate the show, see what you think of it, if you can watch it of course, and then once you get a chance, check out the book too, because I think you might enjoy it a bit more. Once again, another NetGalley book. I'm so sorry, I'm just like reading all the books that I downloaded most recently, and then some of the older stuff, and it's just, I wanted to, you know, enjoy those at the time where my room was getting decorated and I couldn't really look for physical books, so this just came in handy, and it was, you know, a good opportunity to read some more of my e-arcs. So this one was called Glances of Life, Selected Poems by J.B. Anderson. I ended up giving this a 3-star. I'm not much of a poem reviewer. I haven't really, well, until then I hadn't read poems since like GCSE English, so I was really out of touch on how to kind of understand the symbolic meaning of things, so I don't think I really got the poems at that deeper level, unfortunately, but it didn't stop me from, I guess, enjoying what I was reading. Honestly though, I personally found a lot of the stories to be quite light-hearted and funny rather than have any depth, whether I just couldn't, you know, acknowledge that depth because of the lack of my knowledge, or whether it just didn't have any. That's another story. But I do feel like in the last portion or so it got deeper, and I felt like there were meanings to, you know, what was being written, so that was quite interesting. If you do check it out, I have a few recommendations to read. So 3 of them are like right next to each other, and that is The Kitten and the Bee, Greenhorn and Catching Butterflies, and they were all from part 2, and then from part 3, very, very powerful, was The Day After, and I enjoyed those 4 the most, I think. There was interesting art kind of embedded throughout, but I feel like I would have liked more of it, if that makes sense, like more of the art rather than just the little bits we got here and there. I think it would have impacted it a lot more. But yeah, it's quite a decent read. Unfortunately, I think some of the meanings just went over my head just because I'm not, you know, very knowledgeable in poems. Next up, we're almost finished with the books. I read James Herbert's Fluke. I think I enjoyed the rat so much. I had this at hand and thought I need to check it out. I had to make sure that I didn't spoil myself or anything, because I wasn't sure at first, as you might have seen in my TBR, whether or not this was part of a series or whatever. But no, the rats and Fluke are their own different things. Fluke is actually a standalone, I do believe. And this is another kind of weird thing. Again, wouldn't really class it as horror, but basically we have this life of a dog and we're following him. However, the dog is very unique because he has the brain of a human, and he's trying to figure out, why has this happened? Why has he got all these human thoughts and supposedly trapped in a dog's body? So we're basically just following his life as a young pup onto like later on years, trying to figure out who he is and why this has happened to him, which is a really interesting concept. I think it might have been done before somewhere, so maybe it's not as unique as that, but I feel like I've never read something like this before. Maybe watched it. I know they've got that film, A Dog's Purpose or something, that recently came out, which sounds like it's a similar plot, but I mean, this was made in like, what, 1977 or something? I don't even know. First published in 1977, spot on. So, you know, this was before that. I ended up giving it a 3 stars, and honestly I was mildly confused in the beginning, because I was like, the way the dog was describing like cars and stuff, I was like, wait, what is he actually talking about? Until I got to the point where it clicked and I was like, oh, let me go back and read that again, and now that I understand it, I can appreciate his little descriptions more, because obviously he hasn't described it as a human would, you know, so it was kind of a little bit strange at first, and I was like, what is he on about? I'm really glad that we got some sort of reference to spiritual, religious kind of reasons as to why this man dog exists and the circumstances that are around it. I thought it was just enough not to sound preachy or in your face, but it was enough to make you think and be like, the possibilities, you know. So that was pretty interesting too. So I did have my expectations on how the plot would end, and for the most of it I was pretty accurate until the shocking truth at the end. I was just like not expecting that. So it definitely keeps you on your toes when you think you know how something is going to happen. It's not like a thriller in any way, but when you think you figured it out, it turns it around and it's like, no, you haven't got it, something else happened, you know. So I really did like that. It was a little bit unpredictable, and I don't know, it's just a little bit different to what I was expecting, but I quite enjoyed it. It's not something that would stick with me for the longest of times, but you know, it's something that I enjoyed at the time. On to the next book kind of thing, you know. With that said, literally, let's go on to the next book. So the next one I read was Rosario Vampire, or Rosario Vampire, Volume 9 by Akihisa. Ikeda? Oh, I can never say that name. Right, so you guys, if you've been watching me for a while, know that I've been reading this series on and off for the past, like, forever. So I decided to dive back in again after a few months not reading it. And I feel like because of that, I enjoyed this one a little bit more. I feel like it had a better flow. I don't know, it had more of an interesting story, I guess. I mean, I got spoiled right at the beginning. Like, someone had written a review and it said exactly what had happened, and I'm thinking, you bitch, why would you do that? But basically, because the volumes feel kind of episodic, it wasn't too bad. Like, that plot line didn't last throughout the whole book, so, you know, other things happened, you know, that had nothing to do with it in a way. So you know, I wasn't too, you know, butthurt about being spoiled. I was over it. Although the end battle of, like, I think the first story was pretty anticlimactic, it was fast paced and I enjoyed that, and that's kind of what I was after at that time when I picked this up. I was kind of shocked by what I felt was sudden bad language. I don't feel like they used that kind of language before, and then it really dawned on me that a lot of people are threatened with sexual violence done towards them, and I feel like, oh my god, why is this such a thing in these mangas? Like, through this one, it's only just dawned on me how much so that this happens, and I didn't like that. So yeah, that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I wasn't up for that. That was bad. Anyways, for the most part, I did enjoy this. You know, it's been a bit of a hit and miss series for me as I've read it in my later years, but yeah, this one was alright. And then lastly, I read something that was completely different for me, and that was a thriller kind of book, murder mystery sort of thing. I think I got it for free on the Amazon shop, like the Kindle shop. I'm pretty sure it's still free, so if you're interested in how it sounds, you know, check it out. But it's called Killer Twist by C.A. Larmer, and it's the first in the Ghost Mystery book series. I'm not too sure how many books there are. I feel like it might be like an ongoing thing. I'm not too sure if it will ever end. Basically, we're following a young ghostwriter. She basically helps famous people write their autobiographies and stuff. She gets paid, they get all the like publicity and all that. She stays anonymous sort of thing, but she also does like magazine articles and stuff like that. Anyway, she kind of gets tangled up in this suspicious story. One of her clients, who she's writing an autobiography for, dies, and she thinks it's some sort of suspicious circumstance, and she basically takes it upon herself to figure out the truth, because as she goes on discovering things that are happening, more people surrounding that individual are dying. So that's kind of like the basis of the story. I actually enjoyed it far more than I was expecting. I did give it a 3 stars, so it was just, you know, an okay book for me. But, you know, I enjoyed reading it at the time. Our main character, Roxy, was quite fun to read from. I feel like she did some decisions that were rather stupid, but, you know, I guess it was in favour of plot progression or whatever. I don't know if I'd necessarily read the others. If it was for free, I would probably just maybe give it a go, but to be honest, I've had this book in my like library for quite a while, so even though it was free, it wasn't, you know, high on my priority list. But I mean, it does sound interesting. The second book sounds interesting from the excerpt, but you know, I wouldn't pay for it, as bad as that sounds, just because it's not something I generally know I would read and love. You know, I feel like a little bit, maybe I could enjoy it, but I have to be in a certain mood. So yeah, maybe I'll have this on my radar, but I don't think if I do read it, it will be anytime soon. But this one was alright, you know, it's quite a decent read if you're interested in that. that's it for the book portion of this. I know this video is so long, I'm ever so sorry. Next up, I'm going to be telling you all about the 2 things that I decided to review that I watched during June. First one is Emerald City, which I gave a 4 star. Sorry, I had an itchy nose. So this was recently aired on 5 star, and it's basically a retelling of The Wizard of Oz, consisting of 10 episodes, I believe. So I finally finished up this series. I literally had 1 episode that I needed to watch, but I managed to just, you know, watch it in the beginning portion of June. So I don't know why it took me so long to watch it. I was wondering why aren't any more recording, and then I realised, oh, this is the last one. And then when I got to the last one, I was like, but I don't want it to end. So I put it off for quite a while. So I was going to do a full review, but I felt like I didn't have enough good sturdy points to make that happen, so that's why I just decided to tag it on into a wrap up, or, you know, add it onto this video sort of thing. Yeah, I didn't feel like I had enough to develop upon, so here it is in my wrap up. I really enjoyed the little themes that kind of nodded to the original. For example, red bits here and there, like red little colours here and there, indicating the ruby red slippers. They called a Toto a dog, so she called the dog Toto because of events that happened in the beginning and stuff like that. Also, I was a little bit shocked by the sudden sexual scenes. They kind of just came out of nowhere and it was a bit awkward. It was definitely pretty gory, and that's kind of what I wanted, because it felt almost like a grim, almost slightly in some cases apocalyptic in setting. There was a lot of mishmash basically going on, and there was a lot of violence, which I enjoyed. I feel like the violence kind of dimmed down a little bit as the story went on, because I think it felt a bit more story driven at that point, whereas in the beginning I feel like the first couple of episodes just wanted to get your attention and kind of be like, bah, blood, ga ga ga, ga ga ga. I don't know where that came from, I don't know why I said that. So yeah, it definitely calmed down, but I did enjoy the gore. I felt like the cinematography of it was absolutely beautiful. It was just really visually stunning. The colours were so crisp and like when they needed to be bright, but then there was like that flip turn of when you were with, for example, Galenda, everything was pure white, and that, which really kind of compromised with her motives. If you watch, you might know what I mean. So that was really interesting. Oh, and the Wicked Witch of the East was very striking in her appearance too. I really liked how they went for each of the witches. I felt like they really got their character design quite interesting and quite unique. We were introduced to quite a few characters in the first episode, but it didn't seem like rushed or anything. I could keep up quite nicely. It was interesting how they introduced the different characters, for example like the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. It was really cool how they kind of made that unique. For example, the Scarecrow didn't have brains because he had an issue with his memory, so that was why he was there. And then it was really cool, I won't spoil this for you, but it was really cool how the Tin Man came to be, and then the Cowardly Lion. I felt like the way they warped it and changed it and made it to be unique was really, really cool, really enjoyable. I hope you do check it out. There was another character in this called the well, I don't know what she was called, but she was the Masked Princess, and I thought she was horrible. She had quite a bit of story, and I guess the reason why she was how she was understandable to an extent, but for the most part I really disliked her and how she treated people. I really liked the ethnicity of Dorothy. I believe she was Latin American. Please excuse me if I'm wrong, but I liked that they went for a minority group as the main character. And I liked the fact that I believe she was like a doctor or a nurse or something, so she was literally healing as she was going and not just aimlessly roaming around trying to get home, you know what I mean? There was in the first episode, like the first couple of episodes, an insta-love, which is my pet peeve. I really dislike insta-love. They didn't push it too much in the early episodes, like they let it grow over time. So I appreciated that, because otherwise I think it would have been too much and I've been like, oh, I can't stand it, you know. But no, it was fleshed out a little bit over the episodes. I will say that the first episode wasn't the strongest, but I mean it was enough to catch my attention and make me, you know, set a series link for it. The rest of the series was good, like it was pretty decent, although I do feel like there should have been a longer amount of normality before more adventures were insinuated. I do think there's going to be a second series if they get the funds and that for it, so we'll see how that goes. Next up, I didn't know whether to do a full video for this, but I don't have too many points. And I'll keep doing videos for the books. But I ended up watching Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for the first proper time in my life. I remember being younger, I think I might have explained this in my book review, that Harry Potter was kind of my brother's thing. And whenever the films are out and stuff like that, I'd see random snippets, and I remember scenes from the first film. Upon watching this with my cousin, I realised I'd never actually watched it from the beginning to the end, like all the way through. So it was really cool to see that, and I believe it was like the day after the 20th anniversary of the first book that we watched it, so it was a nice time to celebrate, you know, watching it, christening myself with it, you know, watching it properly for the first time, which was quite cool. So I ended up giving it a 4 stars. As you can imagine, it's much faster paced than the book is. I feel like there's a little bit of a rush to get to things quicker, which I mean is understandable because it's a film, and if they was to go and take time and, you know, flesh out every single scene that happened in the book into a film, it would just be probably boring and probably too long, you know. But the only downside to that is they didn't get the full craze of Harry's uncle when it came to those blasted letters. I felt like they jumped to a particular scene too quickly, and that we didn't really get the feel of how insane it was making him. Like, bits like that made things make sense were removed, and it kind of made it feel a little bit choppy, I guess. Oh, when we got to the scene where Hagrid was telling Harry he's a wizard, I just couldn't get past that. Oh my god, I was laughing so hard. All I could think of was, you know, the memes and everything, the Gary's Mod memes where you know, you're a wizard, Harry, I'm a what? You're a... yeah, I just couldn't get over that, basically. It made me laugh, but yeah. Just because I had that in my head, it kind of ruined the moment for me, but no, I still did enjoy the film. I would say the CG was a bit rough. I believe when they were playing Quidditch, they had like some sort of CGI layer over them. You can tell it's a little bit of a dated film. Not too old, you know, it still lives up good, but you can just see the choppiness and the awkwardness of some scenes and the mega cringe of some of the child actors. But overall, they were actually really good actors, and I'm quite impressed by their young acting skills. Overall, really enjoyed it. So glad I ended up watching the full thing. Wish I could have marathoned it, but I'm gonna wait until I read the rest of the books to then do a little marathon, I think. But yeah, I really did enjoy it. I'm so glad I finally watched it. And with that, that is the end of this video. I'm ever so sorry it is so bloody long. I've got to go edit this now and then continue cleaning up my room. This is not going to be fun. But anyway, let me know what you've read during June, and perhaps what you've been watching during June as well. And if you celebrated Harry Potter in any way, how did you celebrate it? Please refrain from any spoilers if you do want to talk Harry Potter, because I've only read and watched the first book / film. So yeah, I'll leave you to it, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye, thanks for watching.